Kevin in Olympia, Washington. Hey, Kevin, what's on your mind today?
Impeachment's on my mind, and I love it in the morning.
Yeah, and a fine thing it is, yes.
Okay, here's my question. If Trump was, assuming he'll be impeached, and if he's convicted, what happens to all of his staff and the people that support him? And I guess I keep thinking about it as I've been waiting, and it's both, can they now be, subpoenaed and compelled to testify? Do they lose their immunity? And especially, what if he refused to leave the office? What would happen?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different pieces to that question, Kevin. First of all, if Trump is impeached by himself, then Mike Pence becomes president. Pence then can make the choice of whether to keep or discard any of the members of his staff. With regard to presidential immunity or the presidential privilege, basically, to the best of my knowledge, that evaporates. Although, this is something that would have to be tossed to the courts, because you actually do want the president to be able to seek advice and counsel without fear that what he says will someday be published in the New York Times. I mean, that's a legitimate concern. On the other hand, you want the president to be held to account if he commits crimes or if he's trying to conspire to commit crimes. So, there's a delicate, bridge there, or path, or whatever. So, we'll just see how it plays out. Peter, listening to WBAI in New York City. Hey, Peter, what's up?
How you doing, Tom?
Good. What's on your mind?
A bit nervous here. I'm going to preface what I'd like to say by quoting Chomsky, or paraphrasing what Noam Chomsky said a while back, that the Republican Party is the largest and most notorious criminal organization around.
Yeah, certainly in my lifetime. They're right up there with the mafia.
Much bigger. I think they've.
I think they are now. I don't think they were when the mob was taken. When the mob killed Jack Kennedy in 1963, I think they were larger and more powerful than the Republican Party. But I think the roles have reversed, and now we've got a mobster in the White House.
Worse, I think we have a deranged man-child Caligula and this, I can envision this, and I'm hoping that there is still hope that if push comes to shove, that he won't declare martial law based upon some sort of shock doctrine, American version of the Reichstag fire. Right. Because he's capable of doing anything, and if push comes to shove, if it's not martial law, will he incite violence in the streets from what's been
he's already doing that. I mean, look at what happened in El Paso. You had over 20 people shot to death because they were Hispanics, because Trump has been raging against Hispanics ever since he first announced his candidacy. I mean, that guy was a Trump follower. There already is this, blood in the streets, frankly, as a consequence of this.
Do you actually believe that the 2020 election will actually be a real election that's not completely rigged on the Republican side and just to show, basically there for show?
We know that elections have been stolen by Republicans for decades now. We know that one of the most effective tools that they've been using, particularly since the late 90s, has been kicking people off the voting rolls in state after state, that this has been a multi-state effort. It's happening in about 30 states. You had Chris Kobach with Crosscheck, Interstate Crosscheck, doing this. You've got individual states doing it. We saw this in the lead up to the 2016 election, where Hillary Clinton lost these 4 states by a combined 81,000 votes. And in those states, in Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, in each one of those states, over 100,000 people had been removed from the voting rolls just before the election. We saw 500,000 people removed from the voting rolls in Georgia just before the guy who did it became governor over Stacey Abrams. So no, I don't think it's going to be a free and fair election, not by a long shot, Peter. And I think that we're already seeing the Trump administration or the Trump campaign lying in ads on Facebook. I'm expecting that, and we're probably going to be soon seeing more. Seth Abramson says it's not just Russia, it's actually a coalition of Russia, some of the right-wingers in Israel, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, that they've all basically gotten together and conspired to make Donald Trump president for their own benefit, and Turkey. And so what we've got to do is, the only way that Democrats do win elections now is, if the Republicans are going to steal 5% of the vote or suppress 5% of the vote, we have to turn out 7% of the vote, or 8%, or 10 or 12%. We've got to double and triple down. And until we've got enough power, that is, take control of the Senate and the White House, that we can pass laws that will restore good governance to the United States, to the extent that we ever had it. And
my fear is, and I'm hoping that I'm wrong, but my perception, trying to see a bigger picture historically, is that we've already slipped over the edge into fascism. It's just not called that.
I think there's about a 10% chance that you're right. The one thing that I think that could take us back is a crisis. A crisis will flip us in one of two directions, and whether it's a military crisis, whether it's World War III, or whether it's an economic crisis, a repeat of the Great Depression, or even a repeat of the crash of 2007-8 or 8-9, we have to keep in mind that in 1932, when America was electing Franklin Roosevelt, Adolf Hitler was rising to power in Germany. Both countries were badly, badly, badly hit by the Great Depression. Germany chose to...
I'm not comparing Donald Trump to Hitler, so I don't want to be misquoted on that if it ever comes up. But the situation and the circumstances are very similar, and something like a Reichstag fire, American style, or internationally promoted by Trump, would serve the Republicans and his interests very,
and it
very
did
well.
On 9/11 in 2001. That was George Bush's Reichstag fire, and I wrote about this, and in fact, published a book about this called We the People. And yeah, I am very concerned about this too, Peter.